stopped organizing things like this. I'm from Minneapolis, and I did 2 years of a comics festival. Before that, I did 3 of these zine fests, and I just want to say thank you to this huge group that's putting this on. You're doing a really good job, and this has been a lot of fun. Tomorrow, after all the hard work is done, that's going to be the special time. And I also wanted to ask, I have a cousin who teaches here at Columbia College, Joshua Castiel. He said he would tell his class to come and listen to me read, and if any of them were here, all right.
So rest in peace.
May they rest in peace, of course. So, this is one of the personal stories. Everything I'm about to say is true. The first boy I ever dated fit the classic stereotype of what young girls with no experience think they want in a man. He was tall, dark, and handsome, brooding and mysterious and arty and shy, also a knife thrower. Andreas Prippelfausch was half Slovakian on his mother's side, and his dad was a heart surgeon. He was raised the second of 3 nearly identical brothers born a year apart, and they all lived together in a mansion on a hill in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Before he was my boyfriend, I would drive by his house with friends to marvel at the disparity of class between him and me. His family was super rich, and my mother raised me in a glorified box with the other poors in another part of town. With my 2 best friends, Sarah Katie and Abby Haddikin, I would drive up to the gate at the foot of the driveway that wound through the trees to his mansion home, and together we'd giggle ourselves into a pile of teenage goo before driving away into the night. It took us 2 months of stalking to realize that his mansion was not the one we thought it was. His was across the street. I guess he didn't mind me being a creep, because soon we started dating. Our relationship lasted 6 months, and in that time I barely saw him. His rigid immigrant stay-at-home mother forbade him from leaving the house more than once a week, except for special occasions and school functions. It was also a really busy time for us while we dated through the spring and summer of our junior year. We were applying for colleges, taking the ACTs, studying for finals, and just everything in life seemed to be stacked so that I couldn't actually see him much while we were supposed to be seeing each other. I did not mind. This meant I was off the hook, I thought, for being a terrified prude. He would never have to know how much his lips terrified me. At this point in my life, I had never kissed a boy. A late teen gearing up for college, I should have just done it, but whatever, I didn't. I had a case of intense anxiety. Andreas was my first mostly non-gay boyfriend, and I was intimidated by the thought that he might want to enjoy some sex with me. I became very concerned that if I went for it and screwed up and wasn't any good at anything, he could be off love and women forever, and I'd totally ruin his life, and it would be the worst. I did go with him once to a school formal where we held hands, which was awesome. I got all those good jitters and felt sweat in my head, and it's totally, So, anyway, once while dropping me off at home after a matinee, he did ask to kiss me at my door. However, it was broad daylight, and his brother had gone with us to the movie, so he was just sitting there in the car, facing us in the driveway, looking directly at me. In my head, I was really building up this first kiss, so I said no right then, and we never did kiss, Andreas and me, ever. Sometimes I think now he might be dead. He went to college in New Orleans just before Katrina hit and is virtually ungoogleable. There's no trace of Andreas Prippelfausch online anywhere. Sometimes I think maybe he had a sex change and took a new name. He could have joined the military and been shot or captured. He could be in jail for a crime he didn't commit. Maybe he's an escort. I find it impossible to believe he never went on to create an internet profile on a social network ever. Anyway, I was super into Jesus back then, and once or twice I could get him to go to church with me because his mother seemed at least to approve of that. I only ever really saw him on church days, weekend afternoons for coffee, that one school dance, or movie nights in friends' parents' basements where we sat across the room from each other, struggling not to seem obvious about how much we wanted to make out. I invited him one afternoon to a Barnes & Noble cafe where I teased the meetup by saying I had a gift for him. I arrived early, was very nervous, and sat with the gift in my lap. It was hidden from view. Really, I wasn't sure it was a good idea. I didn't know how to present it. I'd never given him a gift before and was so nervous I didn't know what to do with myself. When he arrived, he sat across from me at the small table, and he looked just so good. and he seemed really at ease, and I thought, it would be okay. Now is the time to give it to him. And I was reaching for my lap the moment he said he didn't think it was working out, and that he'd rather just be friends. That was really disappointing because I sort of thought he'd be my husband. Because that is the logical conclusion of any hand-holding given to a religious teen virgin. Hand-holding begets kisses and sexes and marriage. So I still had hope for us, and decided to build goodwill for our future until he saw the error of his ways. So I still gave him the gift I brought, which was a Bible with all of my favorite verses highlighted. I learned later that he'd become interested in and was already dating my friend Stephanie, who conveniently lived next door to him, and it was known gave blowjobs, which I now accept is always the better gift. Thank you.